In this video, we will discuss a recent Wisconsin federal court case, Wolf v. Walker. In this case, a federal court held that Wisconsin's ban on same-sex marriage was unconstitutional. If you're studying United States law, you might find this case interesting because of its tests for constitutionality under the equal protection and due process clauses of the United States Constitution. Our background is that Wisconsin state law and the Wisconsin Constitution prohibited same-sex marriage. Wisconsin law defined marriage as between a man and a woman, so a woman could not marry another woman and a man could not legally marry another man. The federal court held that this ban on same-sex marriage was unconstitutional. Specifically, the court held that the ban violated 14th Amendment rights. And these 14th Amendment rights are the right to due process of law and the right to equal protection under the law. Let's look at due process first. Among other things, the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment protects people from state governments interfering with their fundamental rights. And the court explained that marriage is one of our fundamental rights. So all people, whether they're heterosexual or homosexual, do have a fundamental right to get married. So now the burden shifts to the government to explain why it would be constitutional for the government to interfere with people's fundamental right to get married. In other words, how does banning same-sex marriage comply with a due process clause? The court also determined that the government faced a challenge under the Equal Protection Clause. The general rule for the Equal Protection Clause is that governments should treat similarly situated people equally or similarly. So let's say we have two women who want to get married in Wisconsin. The woman who wants to marry a man does not have a problem under the law, but Wisconsin law would prohibit a woman from marrying another woman. This means that the two women are not being treated equally under the law. And because the law treats them unequally, the government will have to show how the law complies with the Equal Protection Clause. So the court then applied a test to determine whether or not banning same-sex marriage was constitutional under the Equal Protection and Due Process Clauses. Three major tests that courts use are the rational basis test, which is the easiest test for the government, and then the harder tests of intermediate scrutiny and strict scrutiny. So which test is appropriate where the government is distinguishing between people based on sexual orientation? The court decided to apply the intermediate scrutiny standard. Under the intermediate scrutiny standard, Wisconsin had to prove that banning same-sex marriage had a legitimate and important government purpose. Wisconsin argued that, among other things, because of tradition and child-rearing, there were important and legitimate reasons for the government to prohibit same-sex marriage. The court concluded that Wisconsin failed to show that there was an important reason to deny same-sex couples their fundamental right to marry. The court explained, among other things, that just as we realize now it is unconstitutional to prohibit interracial couples from marrying, the government does not have a sufficiently important reason to prohibit same-sex couples from marrying. This was a decision by a federal district court, so it could be heard on appeal by the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. If you'd like to discuss this case or any other matter related to U.S. law, stop by the message board and please visit my blog. Also, feel free to send me an email and to submit your comments below.